Now stay in there and behave, or I'm gonna turn you into a fur coat.
Okay, Savvy, what are you planning to do?
I would have thought this would be obvious. I kidnapped you for ransom.
Are you serious? I can't even get people to pledge to my Patreon. You really think anyone is going to pay ransom for me?
Wait, what? Aren't you Golden Fox?
No, I am Tricky Fox. Golden Fox is a Pegasus.
So what you're saying is, you're worthless.
I wouldn't say worthless.
Well, mistakes have been made. I guess we'll drop you off at the next harbor. You can read this comic in the meantime.
Now this is just great. After my review of the first My Little Pony the movie prequel comic issue was a huge success, I'm gonna do the entire series. I hope you like it. Now, while the first issue focused on the Storm King, this one introduces Captain Celaeno, or is it Celaeno? Captain Celaeno and her crew of Parrot pirates. I said weirder stuff in One Piece. Anyway, the comic starts with two of the Storm King's soldiers having a friendly conversation. Okay, I'm just gonna rip off Silverquill here and call them stormtroopers. And I'm actually a bit embarrassed that I didn't think of that myself. In any case, their nice conversation is disrupted when Captain Celaeno's sky pirates appear and raid their airship. Though, as it seems there's hardly anything of value on that cargo ship, just wallpaper paste and bag of sands. Not that the parrot pirates are bothered by that. They cheer when they hear sand, and frankly, that will kinda crack me more up than it should. After that, Celaeno has a small conversation with Mullet, who I guess functions as her first mate. She talks what a fine crew they are, though I personally think it's pretty interesting that they highlight that several members of her crew, including herself, are missing some body parts. She considers her airship a home and her crew a family. It is never stated, but considering all this, I think it's rather likely that they might be victims of the Storm King's conquest and lost everything they had, which brought them together. Mullet, however, points out that they need more than sand to survive. Celaeno agrees, but when Mullet suggests that they could go after bigger targets, she says that this would only make them a target for the Storm King, and she is unwilling to take this risk. This tells us a lot about Celaeno and her crew. First of all, it becomes evident that we are dealing with the romanticized version of pirates. They are not a bunch of bloodthirsty pirates that pillage innocent victims. They are seemingly only going after cargo ships belonging to the Storm King, which is of course meant to make it easier to root for them. Celaeno even calls her crew noble adventurers. Since they only steal from the villain, their actions can be justified and allows their audience to see them as heroic. I'm frankly a bit disappointed. I would have liked to see her as a character who is more on the grey side of morality, but I suppose this was to be expected. Having the main six team up with a dangerous criminal in that movie would probably be a bit too much. The fact that she sees her crew as a family and doesn't want to risk their lives also makes it very apparent that she serves as a foil to the Storm King, who, as we learned last issue, doesn't care about his subjects and only sees them as tools and not as his comrades or friends. Even Celaeno's conversation with her second in command somewhat mirrors the conversation between the Storm King and Strife in the first issue when the Storm King explains his philosophy. Speaking of Strife, this is the moment when he contacts Celaeno, revealing that the comic up to this point took place before the first issue. Also, I kinda missed the opportunity to point it out last time, so I'm gonna do it now. A cloud named Strife? Doesn't that sound familiar? Now Strife offers them an opportunity to steal treasures from the Storm King himself and promises that they won't get caught. The crew loves this idea, only Celaeno is a bit uncertain due to potential risk, but not entirely against it either, putting it to a vote. Everyone is all for it and she seems rather cool with that decision. What is particularly interesting is the reaction of Celaeno's crew when they hear of the possibility of gaining these riches. They are immediately excited, but one reaction in particular is noteworthy. This one parrot says, "We could be real pirates again." This small line implies that not everyone is happy how things are going lately. Which is of course understandable, as they apparently didn't make that much profit lately, but it makes me wonder if her crew sees Celaeno's unwillingness to take risks as a weakness. After they agreed to help Strife, this comic crosses over with the last issue, only this time we see the attack on the Storm King's fleet from the perspective of Celaeno and her crew. Everything goes pretty much according to plan, and Strife informs Celaeno that he sabotaged the ship of the Storm King. They all enjoy their newfound fortune until they find the misfortune malachite. Strife is at least honest enough to tell Celaeno what it is, so Celaeno knows exactly what she is dealing with. Frankly, I expected Strife to claim it for himself, but he seemingly has no interest in it, and even suggested Celaeno can use it for herself, which she declines as she never trusted magic and it could endanger her crew. Again, this highlights how Celaeno mirrors the Storm King. Whereas the Storm King actively looks for magical artifacts to gain more power, Celaeno doesn't want to have anything to do with magic, but she isn't sure yet how to get rid of it and decides to bring it on one of the empty ships they stole from the Storm King. This is where we learn that Kappa and his friend Shamma sneaked on board when the Storm King attacked Abyssinia. Now, Celaeno says that she has no use for stowaways, but nice as she is, she immediately notices that they have nowhere else to go. So she offers them to join her crew, a decision Strife of course questions, but they don't really get to discuss the matter as the Storm King is coming to take what belongs to him. And I have to say, I love this entrance. The way the sky darkens when he appears and how he immediately takes control and doesn't hesitate to throw the treacherous Strife from the ship. It's downright terrifying. Now the question is this the last we'll see of Strife? I think it would be a bit odd. We don't know anything about his motivation except maybe greed, as he seemingly is rather worried about the treasure. He is a pretty bland character and not in particular interesting. His role so far was to convince Celaeno to attack the Storm King. If that's truly all we see of him, I would be pretty disappointed, as he seems like a rather unimportant addition. Not to mention that he can seemingly fly, so I'm pretty sure that he is not dead. Anyway, after getting rid of Strife, the Storm King offers Celaeno to become his new second in command, as she did impress him. But he wants her to abandon her crew. Now one question that comes to mind is why he doesn't want to recruit the rest of her pirates as well. After all, it would strengthen his numbers. But considering that the Storm King likes to be in control, it makes sense. If you were to allow Celaeno to keep her men, they would be under her control and not his. This is of course dangerous as well, because they might take the next opportunity to rebel against him. Not to mention that if Celaeno agrees to abandon her crew, she would be proving her loyalty to him. But of course Celaeno declines. Then it turns out that Shamma and Kappa try to escape on the airship they are on, unaware that also the misfortune malachite is on board, which will probably play a role in the next issue. The Storm King orders his men to shoot the ship down, but Celaeno manages to intervene, which however enrages the Storm King, who immediately threatens Celaeno. And here's the interesting thing, as I already pointed out earlier, Celaeno serves as a foil to the Storm King. They have opposing views. While the Storm King was betrayed because he disregards friendship, Celaeno shows the weaknesses the Storm King attributes to friendship. As she is so concerned about the safety of her crew, they are unable to gather enough resources to sustain themselves. Her unwillingness to abandon her crew puts her own life in danger, and her saving 2 kids she just met only makes things worse. The first 2 issues show the opposites of 2 extremes, a king who couldn't care less about friendship and a captain that values camaraderie over everything else, and both fail at the end. It makes me wonder if at least this comic series is trying to find a reasonable middle ground. Anyway, it's time to wrap things up. Overall, the second comic issue of the My Little Pony the movie prequel is pretty good and I recommend it. Celaeno serves as an excellent foil to the Storm King, which makes it a somewhat interesting character study, and the exposition is not as forced as it was in some points during the first issue. However, as this issue takes place solely on airships, we don't get to see anything we haven't seen before. The conquest of Abyssinia was more visually engaging, and while there are a couple of good jokes here and there, it is not as entertaining as the first one, which can be attributed to the Storm King, who steals pretty much every scene he is in. This is also true in this issue. Well, this time he is less charming and funny and more the terrifying force he is meant to be. In any case, I can't wait for issue number 3. But what about you? Have you read this comic? Anything that bothered you? What do you think about Parrot Pirates? Let me know in the comments. I am Tricky Fox. Stay foxy.
Sly as a fox, you got me under your spell. But you know I'll never tell that I know you know so